Hey everyone, welcome back to FAD Learning. This video is a continuation of our previous tutorial where we explored the two fundamental building blocks of Angular forms called form group and form control. And in this video, we will learn about form builder and also we are going to dive into third fundamental building blocks of Angular form, that is form array, including how to add validations. So let's start with form builder. So building multiple forms with form group and form control can be lengthy and time consuming. As you can see here, creating each form field requires repeating the same code. Fortunately, Angular offers a solution called Form Builder. The Form Builder is a service that simplifies the process and making it easier to create instances of form control, form group, and form array with less code. And we need to follow only two steps to use Form Builder. First is inject the form builder service into your component constructor. So here, let me inject it with private fb form builder. And it is imported from Angular/forms module. So this is the first step to use form builder. Now second step is use form builder to generate our form controls. So now we need to refactor this reactive form to use form builder service, such as instead of creating a new form group, I'll use form builder.group. So this .fb.group. And inside this reactive form, for each form control, we need to pass an array with an initial value, which can be empty or a default value. So let me paste this array to all form controls. Here we are getting an error because here also we need to use form builder instead of form group. So this .fb.group. Now save the changes. And as you can see, the code is now more concise and less repetitive. But either way, whether using form builder or form group, the template code remains the same. So it means we can switch to form builder without making any changes to our template. Okay. So hope you understand the use of form builder. Now let's move forward and learn about the third building block of Angular forms called form array. And form array is the extension of form group and form control, and it helps us to handle dynamic form controls. So when do we use form array? Form array becomes essential when dealing with forms that have a changing number of form controls or form fields. For example, we are creating a form where users can add or remove their skills. But one user might have 2 skills while other has 5. So this kind of situation, we should use form array. So the key difference between form group and form array is that form group is a collection of form fields, while form array allows us to add or remove fields dynamically. So to understand more, let's create a simple example of form array where users can add or remove skills. So first, let's add a skill array similar to the nested form group for address. But this time we will use form array instead of form group. So let's write skills this dot fb dot. So for form array, here we need to write array. And this initialize the form array with an empty array. That's it. This is our normal form group. And this is our nested form group. And these are our form controls. And this is our form array. Now, to access this skills form array, we need to create a getter method. And we can define the getter method using the get keyword. So get followed by the getter method name, let's say skills, which is of type form array. And in this method, we should return the skills form array from the reactive form. So I'll write return this dot reactive form dot get. Inside round bracket, I'll write skills as form array. So this as form array informs TypeScript that the returned value should be treated as a form array. Okay. Now next step is we have to define the structure of our form array. And to do this, I'll create another method called new skills. And this method returns a form group containing a single form control named skill with an initial value of an empty string. So here, instead of creating a form control directly, I'll use a form builder to create a form group. So before this skill, I'll return this.fb.group to this skill inside this FormBuilder.group. So now this method will generate a new form group instance representing a single skill. However, we can add here as many form controls as needed. Like we can add experience, project, etc. But I'll go with only skill. Okay. So inside TS file, we have created a form array. After that, we have created a getter method. And then we have created a new form group instance. Now, inside template file, after this check me out, I'll create a div with class form group and margin 2. And to map the nested form group with template, we used the form group name attribute. Similarly, to map the form array with the template, we use the form array name attribute equals to skills. Now next, I'll create a button.btn.btn primary, and button name is add skill. And on click of this button, it will call the add skill method. So let's define the same method in the TS file. And this method adds the new skill to the skills form array. So I'll write this dot skills dot push, and inside round bracket, I'll write this dot new skill. So this creates a new form group instance using the new skill method and pushes it into the form array using the push method. Now inside template file, I'll use the ng-for directive to iterate over the controls in the skills form array. So here inside div, let me use star ng-for equals to let skill of skills dot controls, and I'll declare an index using let I equals to index, which assigns a current index to a variable I. And inside this loop, I'll add one more div for each skill. So I'll bind this div to the form group at the current index I. So I'll use the form group name directive inside square bracket equals to I. And now I'll display the skill number starting from 1. So inside double curly brackets, I'll write I plus 1 because index starts from 0. And then I'll write text skill name, and after that input text field for the skill name. And to bind the input field to the skill form control, I'll use form control name attribute equals to skill. And last, I'll create one more button, delete. And this button called the delete skill method. Click equals to delete skill to delete the skill at the current index I. So now let's define the same method inside TS file, delete skill, and it takes one parameter I of type number, which represents the index of the skill to be deleted. So inside this method, we will use the remove at method to remove or delete form group instance at the specified index I. Okay. So far we have added two buttons, add skill and delete button, which triggers the add skill and delete skill functions respectively. And when we click on add skill button, a text input field appears to enter a skill. And when we click delete button, the corresponding skill and input box disappear. So let's observe the browser's behavior. And I'll click on add skill button. We are getting an error. Can't bind ng. Okay. In order to use ng-for directive, we need to import the common module or the ng-for inside the imports array. So let me import common module. And now let me click on add skill button. And this time, as expected, an input field appears and it allowing me to enter my skill. And when I click the delete button, the skill and the input box disappear. So this is how we can add multiple skills. So let me add few more skills and I'll submit the form. Angular, then React, then third skill I'll add Java. And now submit button is disabled because of the first name field is required. So let me type Poonam and click on the submit button. After submitting the form, if we open the developer tools, I'll clear the console and let me click on submit button again. And here we can see the skill array with skills Angular, React and Java. And if I delete any skill, the updated array is reflected in the console. Here you can see. Now we are getting array with skills Angular and Java. Okay, so this is how form array works in Angular. And I hope you understand the concept of all three fundamental building blocks of Angular. Just to recap, form control represents a single form field, and form group represents a collection of form controls, and form array represents a dynamic array of form controls. Now let's dive into reactive form validations. And as we learned earlier in the template driven form, Angular provides 5 built-in validators: required, min length, max length, email, and pattern. And in the template driven form, we added validations directly in the template file. However, in reactive forms, we will use these same validations in the class file. So to start, I'll remove the required validator from first name field. And to use validators in reactive form, first we need to import validators from Angular/forms module. Validators. A validator is a function that checks an instance of form control, form group, and form array, and it returns a list of errors. And if the validator returns null, it means the validation has passed. And we can add multiple validators to an array separated by commas. So let's add the required validator to first 4 fields. After this empty string, I'll add an array, and inside this array, we can add multiple validators. First, I'll add validators.required, and the same validator I'll paste for last name, email, and password. Now next, I'll add rest 4 validators as well. So let me add pattern validator to the first name field, validators.pattern, and inside round bracket, I'll copy the same pattern which we have provided in the template driven form and paste it here. Now next I'll add min length validator to the last name field, validators.min length with minimum of 10 characters. Next I'll add max length validator to the email field, validators.max length. I'll specify a maximum of 15 characters. And also I'll add email validators to the email field, validators.email. Okay, so I have added 5 built-in validators to these 4 fields. And by using these validators, we can ensure our form data meets the required criteria. Now save the changes and let's test the validations in the browser. And as we have already disabled the submit button for invalid forms, we need to fill the first 4 fields correctly to enable it. So since we have added required validators to these fields, I'll start by adding ABC1234 to all 4 fields. First name, last name, email, and password. So as per required validator, we have added values to all 4 fields. But if you notice, the submit button remains disabled due to the other validators such as min length, max length, pattern, and email. So let's correct each field one by one. For first name field, we have added required and pattern validator. And since we have already entered the values in all 4 fields, we have taken care of the required validator. So let's focus on the other validators. That is For first name, we have added pattern validator. And this pattern only allows characters from A to Z. So to fix this, I'll remove the numbers from first name field. Now let's move on to the next field, last name. And for last name, we have added required and mean length. And it requires a minimum length of 10 characters. So I need to update this field with 10 or more characters. So let me type few more characters and move on to the next validator. Next validator is max length. It has a maximum length of 15 characters for the email field. So I'll ensure the email value is less than 15 characters. And we have added only 7 characters. So this value we have added as per our max length validator. Now last validator is email validator. And it requires a proper email format such as abc@gmail.com. So as soon as I update the email field value with proper format, you will see that the submit button becomes enabled. However, if I miss any validator, the submit button will become disabled again. For example, if I add more than 15 characters to the email field, the submit button will be disabled. So this demonstrates that our built-in validators are working as expected with reactive forms as well. Now let's add error messages for users to understand what went wrong. And to do this, I'll copy the if block from template driven form and paste it into reactive form. So after this first name, I wish to add the error messages. And in reactive form, we can access each form control using the form name.controls property. And our form name is reactive form.controls. And inside square bracket, we need to pass the respective form control name. So I'll pass first name. Okay. So this syntax allows us to access form controls without creating local variables for each field. So let me update the code using this syntax. And for first name field, we have added required and pattern validator. So here, let me update with pattern. And the error message for pattern validator is first name does not match the required pattern. Let me remove this star round bracket and now save the changes. Let's test our form on the browser. Let me refresh the browser. And when I click on the first name field and then leave it empty, the required validator is triggered and displaying an error message first name is required. Similarly, when I type a number or special character like 1234 or dollar, percentage, etc., the pattern validator is triggered and displaying an error message first name does not match the required pattern. Okay. Now quickly add similar error message to the rest of the validators. So let me copy this if block and paste it below this last name field. Let me update this first name with last name. And for last name field, we have added required and mean length validator. So here I'll update with mean length, and the message for mean length is the minimum length of the last name should be 10. After that, I'll add the same if block to the email validator. Here, instead of last name, write email. And for email, we have added 3 validators: required, max length, and email. So here I'll update with max length and here with email. And the message for max length validator, the maximum length should not exceed 15 characters. And last error message for email validator is please enter a valid email address. After that, we will need to add only required validator to this password field. So let me delete these two validators and I'll keep only required validator. Let me update this email field with password. Okay, so with this we have added respective error message to all these four fields. Now let's retest the form. And when I click on all four fields and leave them empty, the required validator is triggered for each field and displaying the respective error messages. And as expected, when I type a number or special character in the first name field, the pattern validator is triggered with an error message. So let me remove this and add proper name, that is Poonam. Now next, if I type less than 10 characters in the last name field, the mean length validator is triggered with an error message. The minimum length of the last name should be 10. So in order to disappear this error message, I need to write 10 or more than 10 characters. Now next, if I type an email address with an improper format, the email validator is triggered with an error message. Please enter a valid email address. So let me type valid email address poonam@gmail.com. But it exceeds the 15 character limit in the email field. So in this case, email validator message disappears and the max length validator is triggered, displaying an error message. The maximum length should not exceed 15 characters. So I need to delete some characters from this email address. And last, for password field, we have added only required validator, so I can type anything inside password field. Okay, so this is how we have checked all the validators and our form is working as expected, along with displaying helpful error messages to guide the user. So that's all about reactive forms. And we have now covered the essentials of Angular forms. We have learned how to create template driven forms as well as reactive forms. Under this, we have explored how to set default values, reset forms, and add built in validators with error messages. Additionally, throughout this tutorial, I have highlighted the key differences between template-driven form and reactive form to help you to understand the concepts better. And we will also explore how to create custom validators later. But for now, before we stop, if you feel confident about Angular forms, please like, share, and subscribe to FAD Learning for more useful content. Your feedback and suggestions are invaluable to me. Thank you for watching, and we will meet again in the next video. Until then, keep visiting and learning. Thank you. Bye bye.